Fine. So the Gemara on Yud Testament Beis opens up the Gemara with a new issue, but it really connects to something that we didn't talk about, which I really want to get back to in the Gemara about Yanei Melech. The last Gemara that we spoke about last week was the fascinating sugya with Yanei Melech, fascinating story that the Gemara talked about that is the source for Malchi Yisrael not being able to be judged because there was a whole machlokes and it caused Dayanim to die and they were scared. And we saw the Rambam Perish Mishnayos said that this is something that's only applicable to Malchi Yisrael, that they are going to be mechutzafim and not be machnia themselves to the halacha. So therefore, in order to avoid this in the future, we therefore said, Laidan in Oisai, he doesn't come and he's not going to be involved in the process at all in Bezdin. We're not going to judge him at all. So the Gemara said, so fine. So we pointed out last week, we left off with the kasha mamish in the last minute of the shir last week. I left off with the kasha. The Gemara in Shavuos and Avlaman of the Beis, Taisus points out, Vim Toimer, on Yud Testament Aleph, but it's very connected to the Gemara we're going to see on the Beis. We'll see in a second. Vim Toimer, V'amrin and Hossam, Afilu Talmud Chacham, Ein Tzarech Lamod, Mishum Dahaya Sei, V'haya Sei, the Kevodo Adif. So the Gemara says, what's the shikol over there? The Gemara says there's a mitzvah to stand when you come to give edus and when you come to testify. It's a mitzvah essay. The Gemara says there's also a mitzvah essay of Kevodo Torah. So the Gemara says, Hayasei v'hayasei, essay de Kevodo Torah adif. So the Gemara says that the Talmud Chacham does not have to stand when he comes to give edus. That's the psak in the Gemara in Shavuos is din. Fine. Kedamar Berg Shavuos. So Frektais is a kasha. The Kevodo de Chacham enu tzarech lamod. Kol shekein Melech de tvei adif Melech mitalmud Chacham. Keda Amr lekamon, as the Gemara is about to say, the afilu man da Amr arav shemachal Kevodo Kevodo machal, because even though there's a one day in the Gemara and Kedushin which we happen to paskin like that a Talmud Chacham has the ability to be machal on his kavod, Melech shemachal Kevodo ain't Kevodo machal. So what's Taisus? So Taisus says, Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Saim Tasam Alecha Melech. So first of all, how do we see that from the pasuk of Saim Tasam Alecha Melech? Pasuk in Shayftim, Saim Tasam Alecha Melech. So we're going to get that. Excellent. So what does that mean? So we'll get to that in a second. So Taisus is assuming somehow that you see from the pasuk Saim Tasam Alecha Melech, what Abe's saying, which we'll see in a second is Rashi Shiting Subis, that there's a din within the Malchus that he's not allowed to be meichel on his kavod like a Talmud Chacham does. So what does Taisus say? 1 + 1 = 2. If the kavod, the mitzvah's kavod is so high, is so steep, that what doesn't even lend itself to kavod, right? So then Avadai should have the rules and regulations to a din like a Talmud Chacham that doesn't lend itself to kavod. That's not such a mechubed dikazach. That's a lower level kavod that lends itself to kavod. Good? That's Taisus kasha. So why don't we apply the psak of the Gemara in Shavuos that says that a Talmud Chacham of Kevodo Torah outweighs the mitzvah of Amdu Shnei Anoshim, and he's allowed to sit when he gives edus? And Memela says Taisus, we should wash away this whole story. We could have really saved the whole story of Yanei Melech. We could really judge Malchi Yisrael. We would never have a problem, and it all would be great. Which, by the way, the Ran says, a fascinating Ran. One day in the Ran over here is Ein Chanami. Kasha is such a good kasha. Shimon ben Shetach made a mistake. Shimon ben Shetach should have been, he says, Lashon was that the Bezdin should have been meichel on their kavod, and Ein Chanami, you should have let him sit it down, and it's true. But most of the Rishonim are not going to go with that mahalach, and they're going to say, Al Pidin, we hold that Malchi Yisrael, you're not done. Why? Because there's some sort of necessity to make Malchi Yisrael stand. But as Taisus, in the Cheshbon, it doesn't make sense. If you're not mechayev by Talmud Chacham, you shouldn't be mechayev by Malchi Yisrael. Good. So let's come back to this kasha of Taisus. Let's see the Gemara that Taisus quotes. What's the Gemara? So the Gemara says, Leicholitz v'lecholtzin. You know what? Let's not go. We'll come back to the Gemara. Let's finish the Taisus first. Comes along Taisus, and Taisus says, V'yesh Leimar, the teretz is like this. Devadai essay de Kevodo Torah adif. It's not true. My whole premise is wrong. The essay de Kevodo Torah is really stronger. What do you mean? But doesn't Tosis say that what? That one lends itself to Mechila, one doesn't lend itself to Mechila? So isn't that implicit that what? That the covet of what? Of Melech is stronger than the covet of a Talmud Chacham. V'imkein afal pishein Talmud Chacham hayetzarech lamod yanai hayetzarech lamod v'hayde Talmud Chacham yachol limchol. Don't ask me that Talmud Chacham yachol limchol al Kevodo mashe inkein Melech hu mishum kra dekamer soim tichselecha shtei masol lecha ki Kevodo balo mishum de mitzvos hamakom kachu v'ini yachol afkiya mitzvos hamakom. Aval Talmud Chacham Teirasa delay v'yachol limchak heitiv al Kevodo de shalohi. Kedamrina Mesechus Avodah Zarah betchila nikris al shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu ulebesof nikris al shmo shnemar in b'Torah Hashem chefzo u'b'Torah yageh yomam v'layla. The Gemara has a drasha in Avodah Zarah. Gemara says first it's called Torah Hashem, and then it says u'b'Sorasai, right? So the Torah transforms from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's to his personal Torah. I saw recently at Tzlach in Brachos. Tzlach in Brachos writes Birkas HaTorah is exactly like the bracha of Birkas Hanen. Because the Gemara says, how do you know you have to be mevarich on foods? The Gemara says because originally the Gemara in Brachos Lamed Hey Amud Beis, the Gemara says originally it's la Hashem ha'aretzum lo'o, and then now you could eat it. So now, what happens? The Gemara says, kan lebasar bracha v'kan la'achar bracha and kan lefnei bracha. So the bracha now makes it yourself. So the Tzlach says, we could apply the same exact principle through Torah as well. First, it's Torah Hashem. How does it suddenly become Torah? So once you make Birkas HaTorah, so now the person now is transforms the Torah just like a Birkas HaNenin to make it his own Torah. So comes along Tosfos that says from the fact that the Gemara says that there's a concept of Torah so that now we could transform the Torah to be my Torah. So that's the reason why a Talmud Chacham is able to be Meichel on his covet, because it's Torah so delay. Because there's something fundamental within the entity that we're being mechabed over here, which is what? Is that it's your covet. So your covet, by definition, lends itself to mechila. Masha'ein kein melech. Melech is not your covet. Melech is the covet of the Melech Malchei Amlochim, which is part of the whole issue. You read the Navi of Shmuel, which the whole B'di'evid form that the Torah presents within Malchus is that the fact that we even have a Melech is not even so clear if that's correct. So when you're going to have a Melech, says Tosfos, it's not your covet, but you're representing Malchus Derakia. If you're representing Malchus Derakia, it's not yours to what? To lend itself to Mechila. So there's a fascinating makne on this Gemara in Kiddushin that talks about the different people that can be Meichel on his covet. And he asks a kasha. Rav Karlbach, I was learning with the Chavetzalos Hasharon, the Sefer Al HaTorah, he pointed this kasha out to me, and I'm sorry, that's not true. Rabbi Zweig pointed this kasha out to me. Rabbi Zweig from Miami. So one Simchas Torah night was my father and I. We met Rabbi Zweig, and we learned the whole Simchas Torah night all night. Chumash Rashi. We're going through the Torah, Simchas Torah, Chumash Rashi. So he presented this kasha, the kasha of the Makna. We were learning Yisro, because I guess Matan Torah, I don't know why. I never learned Chumash Rashi all night, so I just followed whatever he was doing. So he asked me this kasha of the Makna. So the Makna asked the kasha in Parshas Yisro. The Gemara tells us, Makna tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Melech. If Moshe Rabbeinu was a Melech, what's the problem in Yisro? Before Matan Torah, what happens in Yisro? Yisro shows up. Who comes and serves him? Moshe Rabbeinu. Frek the Makna, how is Moshe Rabbeinu allowed to serve him? Melech shemochal al Kevodo, in Kevodo mochal. The emes is, that's the Makna's kasha. The emes is kibud chamav. So you want to say, right, there is a din of kibud. I like the Bach. The Bach says in Yeridea, the Bach says, there's no kibud chamav, there's hiddur. You have to do something. Like, if you're following easy, there's something, you got to sit up a little bit, but there's not the ganza kibud. That's reserved to the bar. Yeah, exactly. Something. Yeah, something like, be a little polite. That's what the Bach says, So, And the Bach had a chashav a son-in-law, the Taz. So the emes is the same kasha, really. I didn't see the Rishonim ask it. But this past week's parsha, right? Yoshua says, we learned the Gemara in Daf Yud Zayin. Yoshua says, Kaleim. Eldadu Meidad, Misnabim Memachane, right? And they say, the Gemara says, we learned in the first parak, Moshe Meis Yeshua Machnis. So Yeshua said, what is this? So the Gemara handles, right, Moira Allah B'Nefnei Rabo, and the Ramban ala Torah handles what? That Moshe Rabbeinu was what? He was Meichel on it covered, and he quotes Rav Shemachal al Kevodo Machal in this past week's parsha. But my kasha is, like the Machni, you also have a kasha on Basla Ba'aloischa. I understand. Melech Shemachal al Kevodo ain't Kevodo Machal. You should ask the Machni's kasha in Parshas Ba'aloischa that Moshe Rabbeinu can't say, well, what was Moshe Rabbeinu's response? Hametkana atali? Meaning basically the Ramban says, Moshe Rabbeinu was Meichel on his covered. He's not allowed to be Meichel on his covered. Melech Shemachal al Kevodo ain't Kevodo Machal. Yeah.
Possibly. He was not a Melech that was Moshuach or Shemin HaMishkan.
Okay. Interesting.
So there are aspects that he's acting like a Melech, and there are times that he's acting like a Rav. So that's what.
So Al Derech, what you're saying, the Makna answers. He does't say Meshuach Muhammad, which is an interesting pshat. He says a different technicality. He says the pasuk of Som Tasim Melech Melech, which is the source of our din, is only after they were nichnas into Eretz Yisrael. And since they weren't nichnas into Eretz Yisrael, so this din didn't apply. Fine. There is a vart. I have to show you in the Sefer HaChinuch. If we were upstairs, I would just go grab the Sefer HaChinuch off the shelf. But we'll have to get chinuchs down here. So the Sefer HaChinuch writes a fascinating lashon. It's a tough tzadi zayin. He says, this din of the Melech Shemachal Kvoda Ein Kvoda Machal is because it's his malchus is a malchus of the tzibur. The Hainu, Som Tasim Alacha Melech, that is the mucker, according to some Rishonim, could just be that what? Who has the mitzvah of Som Tasim Alacha Melech? The mitzvah is for the tzibur to appoint a king. Which means what? It's not your covet, but not like Tosfos that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's covet. You have an alternative shat. It's the tzibur's covet. So the reason why you can't be Meichel on your covet is not because it's Malchus Derakia. It's because who is the person that is appointing you, that is electing you? It's the tzibur. And that's not your covet for you. You represent the tzibur. You represent social order. And that's mamish the mashmos of the Sefer HaChinuch. So Rav Karlbach said to me, could be you could have another teretz to the Maknas Kasha. Who appointed Moshe Rabbeinu to be a melech? The Gemara in Zvachim tells us the Rebbeinu Shalom appointed him to be a melech. Azam melech, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was memaned to be a melech. Now there's no din of Som Tasim Melech Melech. Again, if the din of Som Tasim Melech Melech means since the tzibur has a mitzvah to be meisimim, that what? So therefore he's not representing his own covet because what? Because he now is the tzibur's covet. So such a melech doesn't have the ability to be meichel on his covet. But if it's all because of Som Tasim Melech Melech, so it's only a melech that was nitztave and it was some al yedei the tzibur. So just 1 second, and that could be exactly what Abe was saying before. If you have the fancy Gemaras on Yud Testament base that quotes the drush of Rashi Ksubas Yud Zayin Amid Aleph. You see the Pnine Rashis? Do you guys have it? The same thing. So you see Rashi Ksubas Yud Zayin. So that's what Abe was quoting. And the Shita Mekubetzes there brings this out even further. What does it say? Yisrael Huzaru. Yisrael was nitztav in Parsha Shoftim. Sheyasimu aleihem simos harbe. Koloimar. Shetehei emaso aleihem. Hilkach ein kvoidei machel. Shelefichach riba akasav simos harbe. So what does that mean? It's a very, very strange Rashi. Rashi is saying there's a double lashon soim tasim, that there have to be multiple appointments, and therefore he's not allowed to be meichel on his covet. So what the Shita Megubetzes points out, what Abe said, is that, okay, he's meichel on his covet. Yeah, okay, but there's another mitzvah, soim tasim. And it continues going. That second, I was meichel on my covet. I'm meichel on my covet. Yeah, but right now I have another mitzvah to appoint you again. I have another mitzvah, soim tasim. It's not just one, it's just a one-shot deal. Be memane, you have a mitzvah of a father. Okay, but he's meichel on his covet, that's it. I don't have to do anything. Now back to, he's my father, but now he has the ability to be meichel on his covet. There's nothing to choser besum him to be my father. But when the Torah goes out of its way, it says soim tasim, so the mechila doesn't do anything because it always lends itself to another sima, But what that fits very well with is this idea of linking it back to the tzibur. That you're connected to the mitzvahs of tzibur. You have to keep social order. Ad kedei kach, the Torah says, no, even if he's Michael's on his cover, you can't have an Am Yisrael without a Melech. You have to be chayzer v'sam the Melech. You have to put him back up there. And if he did something, something that, you have to make sure that he looks mechubad in order to represent the tzibur. That's why it's continuous in its nature. So Rabbeinu Yoina goes with that same mahalach on our kasha of Tosfos. Tosfos says what? Again, there's a Gemara in Shavuos. The Gemara in Shavuos says that a Talmud Chacham who comes to be made is allowed to be sit down because Kavod Torah Adif, right? Tosfos asks a kasha. I don't understand. What do you mean? Isn't the Kavod of Malchus much stronger than the Kavod of Talmud Chacham? And you're telling the Melech over here to stand. So says Tosfos, no. Malchus is Mishamayim and Torah is delay. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, no, you don't even have to come on to that. You could say it for a different reason. It's not Malchus Shamayim. It's Malchus is a tzibur. And because Malchus is the cover of the tzibur, so that's why he doesn't have the ability to be mochel over here, and that's the reason. So now, the Rishonim here are arguing what is the fundamental nature and reason why Melech Shemachal al Kevodo ain't Kevodo Mochel. Is it a function of that you're representative of Shamayim? Or is it because you're representative of tzibur, and that's where your koyach is coming from, and that's why you can't say Melech Shemachal al Kevodo, Kevodo Machal. And Lamaisa, that would be an afkamina how to answer the Maknas Kasha, how to get out of Moshe Rabbeinu. Either because Moshe Rabbeinu was not from the tzibur, Moshe Rabbeinu was nitztav al yedei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or you could say that a technical answer like the Makna, that it was just because all the dinim of Malchus were not set in yet, like Shemen HaMishcha, or because, like he says, before they were nichnas into Eretz Yisrael.
Uh-huh. So the tzibur wasn't Mamane, it was a Kadosh Baruch Hu.
But even though that was Avada before even HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mamane him to be a king. Right. Yeah.
The tzibur didn't put
Gotcha. Gotcha. Very good. Good. But it's a fascinating idea for, the whole debate that people have, what the halachic approach of democracy is, and an elected government. First of all, the Ramban holds that any ruler really that's elected really has a din melech, which makes a lot of sense the way we're presenting in the Des of the Chinuch, that the whole function of a melech is to represent the Am, and like the Rambam tells us, right, the melech represents the Lev Ha'am, and his whole status is coming from the nation, the notion of the Am. So Memela, it should be totally on Som Tasim, and Memela, it should be the Kavod Tzibur. That's the reason why it's not Kavod Dilei.
He didn't have previous yichus.
Right, exactly. It's because of their election, right? So that would really have nafkaminas, real serious nafkaminas about things we've spoken about in the past, about Melchemes Mitzvahs B'zman Hazeh. Are we missing Melech? What do we hold about an elective government? Does that constitute a Melech? That would possibly connect to some of these issues. What's the nature of a Melech? How does a Melech become a Melech? Is it tzibur based, or is it HaKadosh Baruch Hu based, which would
It has to be like a chifa,
mm-hmm.
He has to osei b'nei, osei masei.
Right. So that's a debate amongst the Rishonim. That's the Ramban. That's what Rav Kook debated, that maybe perhaps that you could have a melech even without that. So that's that's what the Ramban is about. Okay. So then the Gemara goes in within Melech Shemachal Kevodo, the following Gemara. So if you look at the back in the Mishnah says one of the dinim of the Melech is that choyleitz v'choltzen leishto. Ein loy choyleitz v'loy choltzen leishto, by the test of the Rambam in the Mishnah. But who argues? Gemara says loy choyleitz v'loy choltzen leishto. He doesn't do chalitza, right? And if he dies, you don't do chalitza to his wife. Lo miyabim, he doesn't do yibim, v'lo miyabim leishto, and you don't do yibim to his wife if he dies. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Emratza Lachlotz Oliyabim Zacher Latoiv. Rabbi Yehuda says that no, he's allowed to, and if she wants to do yibum, she's allowed to. So the Gemara asks on Rabbi Yehuda. That's what that v'chomer. The Gemara says lo choltzin, and then it has v'chomer, so it means it's going on the hemshich of the Mishnah. Ini frek the Gemara v'omer of Ashi afilu man the Omer nasi shemachal al Kevodo Kevodo machol Melech shemachal Kevodo in Kevodo machol shneimar soim tasim alecha Melech shetehei masa alecha. In the Gemara is that was the Gemara that Taisus was quoting. So that's the Gemara Kasha. Everyone subscribes to Melech shemachal Kevodo in Kevodo machol. So how could Rabbi Yehuda say that he's allowed to be meichel on his kavod and he's allowed to do chalitza and what? And then they're going to spit in the shoe that which is something that is not respectful for the king. So Gemara says, no problem. Mitzvah shiny. So what does that mean, mitzvah shiny? Since they're doing a mitzvah of chalitza, so that's not going to be a problem. Oh, so beautiful. So if you understand, let's just place back what we just said. If the whole function of Melech Shemachal Kevodo Ein Kevodo Machal is what, like Tosfos said, that it's Malchus HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's Kvod Shamayim, so then what? Then this Gemara is going to read like a charm. Because mitzvahs, if the whole idea that you're involved with is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to do his mitzvahs, then what? Then there shouldn't be a problem. Then it should be totally fine. The only question is, so now how are you going to explain according to the other Rishonim? If it's a function of the tzibur, or you don't accept that it's what? Melech Shemachal Kevodo is a function of the tzibur's kavod, and it's not because of the Malchus of Shemayim, so why should mitzvahs make a difference? Why should now mitzvah shiny? So let's see. So Tosfos here asks a different kasha. Mitzvah shiny. So Tosfos asks a different kasha. There are 3 Gemaras in Shas that really deal with the concept of 4 Gemaras, but one is just the din of Melech Shemachal Kevodo Ein Kevodo Machal, and then there are a few different Gemaras that talk about this issue of Melech Shemachal Kevodo. One is a Gemara in Saita, that the Gemara talks about the mitzvah of Hakel, and that the Melech got up to lane, and then there's a debate in the Mishnah of whether or not the Melech that he's laning from the Torah, should he do it sitting or should he do it standing? And the Gemara says, the Mishnah says there, that Agrippus, even though he was allowed to sit, right, and the Gemara asked there, how's he allowed to sit? Wasn't it in the Azara? And Ein Yeshiva B'Azara, El Malcha Beis David. So the Gemara says, no, it was not technically in the Azara. The Gemara says that's a technicality. So the Gemara says that Agrippus stood up, and they were Meshabeach him, that he stood up. Okay? And then there's another Gemara, Gemara in Ksubis. The Gemara in Ksubis talks about, on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, talks about a kala that was passing by, and there was a melech there, and Agrippus was the same king. It's fascinating. It's always Agrippus that this issue's come up with, and Agrippus made sure to turn away to make sure that he wouldn't have to hold up the kala, and that the kala can pass, and that they wouldn't have to hold up the kala and allow the melech to go. And the Gemara says that the Rabbanim were Meshabeach Agrippus. So Tosfos has a kasha. So what's Tosfos kasha? Tosfos kasha is, I don't understand. If our Gemara tells us mitzvahs shiny, and that's not a stira to Melech Shemachal Kevodo Machal. Sorry, I didn't tell you what the answer to the Gemara is. Gemara asks, how did Agrippus do what he did? That he turned away and allowed the kala to pass. Hello, ask the Gemara, Melech Shemachal Kevodo Ein Kevodo Machal. Answers the Gemara, it was Parashas Drachim Havi. It was a traffic light. People sometimes are turning right, people are going straight, people are going left. You get a fork in the road and you can go in any direction, and it wasn't clear that he did it for the purpose of the kala. So it wasn't a zilzal in his cover. So Frek Tosfos Akasha, you have a much better teretz. What's the much better teretz?
They're both she's a malcha also, no?
So therefore what?
They're equals.
So it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah.
But I'm saying, aren't they equal on level of kavod? Meaning she owes him kavod, he owes her kavod.
I don't know. You have a kavod of kalas?
I'm saying double melech, no?
First of all, I don't know. Kala.
Oh, it's just the kala.
No, probably was both.
Right.
It's a chasam daimel melech. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it's.
You're like, we build that up. We build that up on the day of the chasana.
So why is it a mitzvah?
What?
Why is it a mitzvah to laber l'pnei hakala? You maber ateva b'pnei hakala, but why is it a mitzvah?
You want to know B'chlal, what was Taisis's kasha?
Why is it a mitzvah? Because of Simchas
L'chayr, no?
Chasam V'Kala.
No, to be Mesameach Chasam V'Kala. Yeah, Taisis clearly assumes that there was a mitzvah of Simchas Chasam V'Kala.
If she's dancing, parading down the street, and you put your hand up.
That's going to stop the simcha. And they're, plus, it's have some mom and they're paying every minute for the band, you know. So, this Gemara says, V'amai, so Frek Taisis, V'chiyagav lo mashani ashas gabi ha-melech shavar lefnei ha-kal b'perka yisha sh'nes armula the mashani parshas drachim avoy v'amai lo mashani mitzvah shayni. Why didn't the Gemara say there mitzvah shayni? Why do you have to say it was a fork in the road? Just say it was a mitzvah. V'yesh loimer zok Taisis the hasam ein a mitzvah kiyim, yeah. Taisis says kiyim b'shvil kavod ha-chasen v'ha-kala. V'kavod ha-melech odif tvei mi kavod ha-chasen. V'mkein leka mitzvah aval hach gabi iba mitzvah ika. I mean, Taisis is building off of what Eitan said before. Taisis is building off of, I'm still sticking that it's covered that mitzvah shiny. But when the mitzvah is what? A mitzvah klape shmaya, not a mitzvah to show covet to the other person. So then what? So then then the melech comes first. That's a problem. But if the mitzvah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu based, if the mitzvah is a mitzvah bein adam l'makom like Yibum, so then what? So then, yeah, that's true. That's true. One could argue that. One could argue that. But Taisus is saying that he wants to say that Yibum is also is a social to who? To the dead person?
Yes.
Right. So, okay. So that's true. So now it gets really into Kavod HaMesim, Kavod HaChayim, right? Okay, it could be. But the pashtus would be that it's a mitzvah. There it could be that the motive of HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that there should be a Kamas Shem HaMes. But the pashtus is that mitzvahs bein adam l'makom is a chiyuv towards one another when a person's alive. But my achrayis to a person could be that there still is a mitzvah bein adam l'chavero, but for sure is on a lower level when a person dies, because there is no reciprocity. There is no connect.
Mitzvot that are connected to a met are between the adam and the
So that's a good question. I'm not saying that. You want to know, is it right? Yes, it could be that Rabbi Schechter would say that. Rabbi Schechter quotes in Abarbanel that he says that mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero is all based on reciprocity, and that's why there are no mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero to goyim, because they're never going to. They don't have any achrayas to give it back to you, so therefore there's not. But the same svara would now say that the mitzvah bein adam l'chavero would not necessarily be to goyim, and it could be. I mean, it's not going to happen after You're chayving all your mitzvahs to the mesim. The shaila is, would that bein adam chavero?
It's so great though. It's chesed shalames because
right. Meaning you're not going to get repaid. Right. That is why it's chesed shalames.
But you're doing that because it's
right.
It's obviously it's to the adam.
Yeah.
Or it's.
If you're going, otherwise it's
you're saying it's not a
chesed.
It's not a chesed.
Yeah.
I hear. Okay, could be fine. Very good. So maybe Yibum is not, but even if you want to say that the nature of the mitzvah is towards the mace, l'chara the mitzvah to a kavod hachayim is much more personal. That would be a problem for the melech to be meichel on his kavod, as opposed to doing the mitzvah of yibum or chalitza. Or Taisus is assuming that no, a mitzvah of yibum or chalitza is not bein on the chavero, and therefore would not be a problem. But again, Taisus fits with his shita that again everything based of the melech and malchus is covered is all malchusa derakia, and memela that would not be a stira. Yeah.
Yibum pashtus is the chesed you're doing to the Yavama, that she's going to have zera from the one that was mace.
So you're
So of course it's a chesed.
That's for
Oh,
her.
it's a shame.
For it.
But hey, he gets to have his legacy.
right.
That's supernatural. But to her, it's practical that it's going to be hit the zera
Release
of the mace.
She can get remarried once I do chalitza. She can get remarried.
But Yibum is higher order. Yibum is better.
I mean, in light of our past shiurim, I think we spoke about this 3 shiurim ago. We brought from the Ram and the Chinuch. She's not even obligated in Yibum.
She could be mochelos on Yibum.
No, but we had a kasha that we still never answered. that we don't understand how the Gemara could suggest Esei Deichalois Esei by her if she's not even Mitzvah in Yibum. And the Rambam writes clearly at the beginning of Hilchos Yibum, Perek Aleph, Ha'ish Mitzvah al Yibum. And the Isha is not. So, however you're going to answer that kasha, you have to answer that kasha. Some way she's part and parcel, and we didn't ever get back to that, which is another shir on its own, how even if she doesn't have the mitzvahs essay, you could still say Esei Deichalois Esei by her. But the mitzvah is not on her. So the question is there any other way to answer this kasha? And in addition to Taisa's kasha, the Taisa Rosh asks from Agrippus, the other Gemara. So the Taisa Rosh answers when it comes to Agrippus, which is the case of Saita. So what's the din there? So the Taisa Rosh says, Va'afilu Rabbana de pligi hacha moide gabe hidu perik elu nemarim gabe Agrippus shekaram umad v'shilchu chacham. Why? Even Chacham agreed to that din in Masechah Saita that Agrippa stood by Hakel, that the guy that they gave him shvach. Why? The Hasam Shiny Sha'asal Lekavod HaTorah. Again, that Gemara in Saita is not shver either. If he's doing a Lekavod HaTorah, that's fine. The Ein Shumana Lebrius El Lekavod Shamayim. Again, Taisa Rosh says it's much stronger. Hana Lebrius. Hana Lebrius is a problem, is a stira to the Kavod and the Malchus of a Melech. But if it's Lekavod HaTorah, Lekavod Shamayim, so then that would be mut. So that's how Taisa and Taisa Rosh are going to answer both the Gemara by Agrippus, by standing for the laning of Hakel, and the Gemara in Ksubis that he wasn't able to stop. So the Ran in Sanhedrin says a different shot. The Ran in Sanhedrin says, Mitzvah Shayni, Perish va'afilu achi pligi rabbanon. Mipnei sheyesh, he says, our Gemara by Yibum and Chalitza is different. Why do the Rabbanon not subscribe over here when it comes to this mitzvah? He says, by other mitzvahs they may subscribe. He says, over here there's a difference because the mitzvah itself is a bizayin yosem midai, bechalitza, mishum v'yarka b'fanav. U'b'yibum nami ein Kevodo shel Melech l'shtamish b'kli shenishtamshu bo achir. V'yafal gav da'amrina b'soif soita gabi Agrippas ha'melech shekar ba'amida v'shivchu chacham, and chacham agree over there. Aval gav d'chsiv tzom tasim alech ha'melech. Amar rabbanon moidu b'mitzvah. Hainu dafka ba'amida deleka bizayin. Kule hai. Ubaha afilu rabbanon moda. Ava b'chalitza v'yibum ika zilusa tvei. So he says, this machlokes tanoim, the Ran says, is not going to be, they're not going to debate this when it comes to what Agrippus did by Kavod HaTorah. He says, because over here, not necessarily because it's Kavod HaBrius versus Kavod HaMakom, but rather he says, this mitzvah is what? Is a bizayon. And even if you hold, this is a very important Ran for other purposes, even if you hold Melech Shemachal Kevodo, or that in certain stereos for mitzvahs, he has the ability to be Meichel, however you want to explain it, right? Maybe because it's the Kavod Shamayim, but there's a limit to how much he could be Meichel. He can't be Meichel for bizayon. And this is what's quoted la'alacha legabe parents. Parents have the ability, and it's a very important halacha to know. The Rishonim write like this. Parents have the ability, Av Shemachal Kevodo Kevodo Machal, and a Rav Shemachal Kevodo Kevodo Machal. But they don't have the ability to be Meichel Le'inyan Bizayon. And if a child is going to be Mavaziyu, that's already denigrating. That's already eradicating the whole parsha of what a parent is. That's already uprooting the much more than just Mechilas Kavod. Now you're just going against the Dinei HaTorah. The Torah set up a system over here. The Torah set up that the world should look like it functions normally. Now you're going to even allow, and you're going to be so not makbid on your kavod that they're going to allow even bizayon. So Zok Ran, that's not allowed for mitzvahs for the Melech to do. Now this is going to look horrible. You're spitting in the Melech's face. You're doing chalitza. Even linyan bizayon. There's a difference between mechilas kavod and mechilas bizayon. Zok Ran. So that's the way the Ran explains. So the Ran says, the Rabbanon agree fundamentally that mitzvah shiny. But, says the Ran, that's not going to help legabe the mitzvah of mitzvah sheyesh bo bizayin.
So it means that the Isha she never can marry them?
Yes.
She's always
Yes.
attached to them?
This
There's no other way.
this Eishes HaMelech is going to be in a Yivam L'Shuk forever. She's not allowed to marry anyone.
Yeah, because she has a
Right,
connection.
100%.
This connection cannot
She
go
had
away.
a few nice years living in the White House. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
well,
It's a trade-off. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Right, she still gets Secret Service.
Yeah.
So then he quotes another shita. Oid Kasav Rabbeinu David Shaloi Amru Melech Shemachal Kevodo Shein Kevodo Machal Inyan Mitzvah Ela Shein Acherim Rashayin Linog Bo Zilusa Afilu Achar Shemachal Kinyan Zeh Chalitza Avol Kshebiu HaMelech Al Atzmo Likros Ba'amida Ein Acherim Nogim Bo. Says the Ran a different day. Says the Ran, no, there's a difference between Agrippas HaMelech and this case. Why? Because over here, Agrippas HaMelech, it wasn't anyone doing anything else, anything denigrating to me. I decided, it's my decision, and I decided whether to sit or stand. So I presented my malchus in a certain way. So that's fine, that's allowed. But says the Rabbeinu David, but for other people to act on my mechilas kavod, that's where the Rabbanim said, no, this you're not allowed to do. I can decide myself, I have my own volition, what I want to do. But if for other people to respond to me and to interact with me in a denigrating way, that's where Rabbanan do not subscribe. Even if it's a mitzvah, it's not going to help. Why? So I thought this Rabbeinu David would fit very well with the other notion that we started off with. Because the function of Melech Shemachal Kevodo is what? Is a function of the tzibor. And the tzibor is going to interact with me in such a way, so that's going to be something that I can't even for mitzvahs I can't uproot, because that's a problem. If I myself want to do it, okay, fine, as long as they're going to act appropriately, because my covenant comes from the tzibor. But if the tzibor is going to act in a zilusidik way, so then that's going to be problematic, and that I don't have the ability to be meichel, even if it's a mitzvah, because the tzibor is chayiv to be mechaber me. So perhaps all these rishonim come down to that fundamental issue that we started off with, of what is the function, what is the nature of the Melech's kavod. Why can't he be meichlet? What's distinct about the Melech's kavod, which is ultimately going to be the answer to why it distinguishes itself above and beyond a Talmud Chacham, and you can't say that the cheshbon of Gemara and Shavuos should now allow a Kal V'chomer to allow the Melech to be made with yeshiva, just like they allowed by Talmud Chacham. Is it from the Shamayim, or is it from the Tzibur? Good. So we'll just end with this. The next sugya, which is really not a sugya. It's a Rashi that's out of place, and it's a one-line Rashi, but it's a fascinating Rashi. We have a few minutes. I just can quote it quickly. We just can move on next week. So Rashi is a famous Rashi. Rashi in the second line in Yud Tesam base. Rashi is commenting on the Mishnah. You're not allowed to do chalitza li'ishta. Why? Mipnei she'asura li'nase.
Is that way around?
So what do you mean?
It sounds like the opposite.
No, so I'm saying that there'd be no point if she's not going to get
married. Rashi's saying, anyways, she can't get married.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because of that, you're not
right.
Not that
right.
Way around.
So listen to this.
She cannot be chalutza. She cannot
so listen to this.
So
I'm not going to get into the details, but there was a woman in our shul that had a shaykhus to another woman, and she was becoming from her. And I don't know. They asked me what they should be learning, in order to, get. She was interested in the religion. They started learning. I think they started learning Sefer HaChinuch. They started learning about mitzvahs, and they were learning about Yibum. And this woman who was not from said to the woman that was teaching her, and once she was learning some of the details, she said, "Well, I don't remember all the details, but this actually happened to me." And I actually have a brother far away that I never. So the chavrusa, the person who was learning with her, called me up and said to me the following question. She said to me, "She's older. She's not interested in getting married. So does she have to do chalitza?"
I thought it's not on her.
What do you mean?
The mitzvah, the chiv isn't on her.
Mitzvah yibam.
Yeah.
Right, l'chayra, and echnami, right? The Rambam would hold that mitzvah is not on her. But should we do it? For sure, there's a brother.
Right. She might change her mind and get married.
So fine, let's talk about right now. You're right. Policy-wise, I think Abe is right. You never know what's going to be, and I would definitely take care of it.
But you do have a certain point where it becomes clear.
Right.
Right. 80 years old. Yeah.
Right. In echanami. So but let's talk. So came along the Chacham Tzvi, and the Chacham Tzvi quoted from our Rashi, and he said, if a woman says she mamish has no interest in getting married, then what? Then there is no din of chalitza. I mean, chalitza, according to the Chacham Tzvi, is very much like some of the Achronim understand the mitzvah of shchita and the mitzvah of truma. It's that it's a machshir, it's a matir. It's that if you want to move on in life, so then you should do mitzvah chalitza. That's the matir. That's what's going to remove the isser of yavam lashuk. That I have what? A residual connection to the yavam from the ishus from the mace, which is called zika. And now, right? This is when I came to Boca. When it came out, I said to Rabbi Goldberg, "Yesh zika or ain't zika?" So that's a sugya of Maseches Yevamos. Do we really have a connection or not? So that's called zika, and the chalitza comes and is matir that zika, that ishus to the yavam through the ishus hames. For Rashi, if she's not going to get married anyways, so there's no mitzvahs chalitza. And that's what the Chacham Tzvi paskin. Chacham Tzvi paskin sound like this, that if she's not going to marry, she doesn't. Many of the Achronim disagree. There's a fundamental, what?
Asura means it's not up to her.
Mm-hmm.
She can't
Right,
change her mind
right,
and say, I want to get
right.
married now. Asura means forever.
Right, but you could deduce from Rashi that if there's no, if it comes from a vantage point of the future marriage.
She's not able to get married for whatever reason. She's not physically able to ever get married. Then okay, but not if she could change her mind.
Right. So I would have said like that. So if you look at the Rambam in Perish Mishnayos, and this will close, the Rambam in Perish Mishnayos, fascinating, says something really earth-shattering for Maseches Yevamos. This is a real big Maramokim, and I have a story to say about this Rambam. Fascinating story. The Rambam says in Perish Mishnayos, which we can never find every week. Here we go. The Rambam in the second parak says the Rambam in the second paragraph in Parak Sheni, second to last line of the Rambam. I want everyone to see. You got it? So you got the line? Aval chalitza? It's probably earlier, right after the Gemara. Oh, I don't know where it is in the Ozil Haders actually.
After the apple portion, Yafei 9.
Right before the Muki Yosef.
Just before?
Just before the Muki Yosef.
Yeah, there you go. So look at the second to last line in Parak Sheni. Yeah. Melech lay done. What's your Dibra Maskal by you, Josh? Okay, so Aval Chalitza v'Yibam, you have it? Aval Chalitza v'Yibam ein Shayman loy. Why? Lefi shezek kolon loy. It's embarrassment to him. V'yarka b'fanav, and she's going to spit in his face. Zok the Rambam, v'hoyol v'ein sham chalitza, ein sham yibam. So Rambam says, and since there's not going to be chalitza because of this technicality, so there's not going to be yibam. So first of all, there is no such klal in the Gemara. The Gemara says pum fakert, exactly. The Gemara says kol she'eno olo liyibam eno olo lechalitza. The Rambam makes a new klal. Kol she'eno olo lechalitza eno olo liyibam. But why is he eno olo lechalitza? Because of a technicality. Because it's a gnai. It's not a person that kol she'eno olo lechalitza is a person that it's usher for them to be miyabim. There's a fundamental problem in their relationship. There's something lacking in their zika, in their connection, and therefore, Mela, we're not going to give them chalitza. But here the Ram is saying, what? No, there's a technicality that I can't be chayleitz because it's a gnai, right? So now I'm not going to allow him to be miyabim either. Why should that klal first of all exist? And if anything, there's a Tosis in Yevamos that says fakir. Tosis asks, the Gemara says a charesh and a chareshes have the ability to do yibum. So Tosis asks, why don't you say kol she'eno oil chalitza? Why? Because they can't say the psukim. So kol she'eno oil chalitza eno oil yibum. So you know what Tosis says? No, that's not eno oil chalitza. That's pumayu hu dekoyev. That's a technicality. They have a speech impediment. So that's something that's now going to not allow the process of chalitza. But if you want to fundamentally understand their relationship, that's oil chalitza, it's oil yibum. And yet the Rambam says when it comes to Melech, that's the reason why she's not Oil Yibam. That's the reason why she's going to stay not married forever. Because there is some klal, and you're going to have to differentiate between Melech and Malka and Cheresh and Chareshes, that sometimes we do say, Kol she'ena ol chalitza, ena ol yibam. But everybody said, listen to this. Reb Chaim, look at Nefesh Harav. Reb Chaim Brisker had a problem. There's a lot of politics in Volozhin back then. Okay? Back by the Nitziv. They were going to hire Reb Chaim as a Rebbe, and they were not into Reb Chaim's style of learning. You have to understand, a lot of people wouldn't like me to say this publicly, but before Reb Chaim, this was not the way the yeshivas learned. I'm saying the Shagzari didn't learn like that. Reb Kiva Eger didn't learn. It wasn't everything, having a fundamentally understanding the approach of the Rambam and the Ravid, where the distinguishing. No, you open up a Shagzari, you open up Reb Kiva Eger, they bring a Gemara in Sanhedrin and Daf Memvav, and they say the Ramban's wrong. It's a raya against it. Weiter, we go weiter. Kashas, terutzim. How do you understand this? Not like a totally different mahalach in learning. So there was a lot of people that were against Reb Chaim to become a Raman in Volozhin. So Reb Chaim had a problem, and there were 3 gedolim. I forget exactly who the 3 gedolim were. 3 really big gedolim that came to listen to Reb Chaim and to give them a faher. Reb Chaim was saying over a shir, and Reb Chaim was saying over a shir in Eilinus. This is a sugi in the beginning of Yavamis, and he stopped in the middle. And they asked him, why did he stop? So he said, because there's a Rambam in Perish Mishnayos in Sanhedrin that's against what I'm saying. So the guys who were against him started saying, no, it's not really against, it's not really true. It's not really a stira. They were trying to answer. Reb Chaim says, no, it's a stira. Reb Chaim walked away in the middle of his prabba, and even though the Torah was so geschmack, Rav Shechter writes in Nefesh Harav, he says, if it's not emes, I'm not saying it. And Reb Chaim walked away, and they respond. They saw a person who shows that Torah is so emistic. That's the most gavaldik around. That's what hired Reb Chaim, and that's what got us started learning Reb Chaim. So I had such a mice in Karen B'Yavin. I don't know if you know Rav Blachman. So I had this chavrusa, this brilliant chavrusa. You can wait upstairs a little bit. So I had this chavrusa, and he was really a very, very, very sharp guy, and we were learning. And Rav Blachman's shir, if anyone knows about Karen B'Yavin, Rav Blachman's shir, anything you say, you think about like 50 times before you open your mouth. It's like old style, Rav Hutner style. Like that's who his Rebbe was, and that's who he's. I remember, like I used to call him on the phone. I used to like shaking the phone, like. So I remember he was giving shir, and he was saying over this whole Givaldik Mahalach, and this guy who I eventually went with in YU, he brought up a kasha. He says, but doesn't Jastro translate that word as the following? And I was like sitting there like, oh my God. Like, there's a guy who he's new to learning, and I just like, oh my God, no, ixnay on the Jastro. Like, you can't, like, that's just not brought up in shir. Rav Blachman turned to him, and there was silence in the room. I thought he was just going to like, how could you bring in Jastro into my shir? He's like, you're right. He sits there for 10 minutes. His head's down. It's like awkward. And he walks out of the room and says, shir's over, the whole mahalach's wrong. From a word in Jastro. So I was so nispal from that whole mahalach. First of all, I thought the guy was going to get shechter for the opposite reason. And it was mamish like al derech, this idea of the emes. But ad kadei kachlet, even a word of Jastro. So if your Talmidim bring up, or if someone shows you a word of Jastro, you should take it with